Here in the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, we find a volcanic archipelago teeming with life unlike any other on Earth, the Galapagos Islands. These islands, a living laboratory of evolution, have captivated explorers and scientists for centuries. But their allure extends far beyond the realm of natural history. Did you know that the Galapagos Islands, renowned for their biodiversity and as the inspiration for Charles Darwin's theory of evolution, have been of interest to various world powers since the 19th century? Their strategic location, a gateway between continents and oceans, has made them a coveted prize. Over the years, France, England, the United States, and Chile have attempted to acquire, occupy, or utilize the islands due to their strategic location in the Pacific. Join us now as we journey through time, uncovering the forgotten tales of empires that sought to claim these enchanting islands as their own. Our story begins in the early 19th century, a time when the British Empire, vast and powerful, cast its net across the globe. In 1832, the Ecuadorian government claimed sovereignty over the Galapagos Islands, incorporating them into their young nation. However, this did not deter the ever-expanding British Empire. In 1835, a young naturalist named Charles Darwin aboard the HMS Beagle under the command of Captain Robert Fitzroy arrived on the shores of the Galapagos. While Darwin's observations would forever change our understanding of life on Earth, Fitzroy saw in these islands a strategic opportunity for the British Crown. He envisioned the Galapagos as a potential outpost, a vital link in their global network of trade and naval power. Though no official claim was made, Fitzroy's reports planted a seed, a recognition of the island's strategic value. This marked the beginning of a long and complex relationship between the Galapagos and the world's superpowers. The Galapagos, however, remained under Ecuadorian control, a testament to their resilience in the face of imperial ambitions. The islands, it seemed, were destined for a different fate, one intertwined with the ebb and flow of global power struggles. This early interest in the Galapagos foreshadowed the challenges that lay ahead, as nations around the world began to recognize the archipelago's strategic importance. As the 19th century progressed, the Galapagos attracted the attention of another European power, France. With ambitions of expanding their influence in the Pacific, the French saw in the Galapagos a potential foothold in this increasingly contested region. French diplomats engaged in negotiations with Ecuador, exploring the possibility of acquiring the islands. The allure of the Galapagos, with its strategic location along trade routes and its potential as a base for whaling and other maritime activities, proved difficult to resist. Ecuador, however, stood firm in its resolve. Having recently claimed independence from Spain, they were determined to safeguard their sovereignty over this newfound territory. The Galapagos, they argued, were an integral part of their nation and they would not relinquish control. Despite their interest, the French ultimately backed down, recognizing the diplomatic complexities and potential repercussions of challenging Ecuador's claim. The Galapagos, for now, remained under Ecuadorian control. This episode, however, served as a stark reminder that the island's isolation offered little protection from the ambitions of distant empires. The Galapagos, it seemed, were destined to become a focal point in the global game of power. The French may have retreated, but their interest in the Galapagos foreshadowed the persistent allure of these islands, an allure that would continue to attract the attention of world powers for decades to come. The mid-19th century saw the rise of new technologies and the intensification of global trade. Steamships began to navigate the world's oceans, connecting distant continents in ways never before imagined. The Galapagos Islands, strategically located at the crossroads of these burgeoning trade routes, once again piqued the interest of the British Empire. Recognizing the need for a strong naval presence in the Pacific, British strategists saw the potential for a base in the Galapagos. Such a base, they reasoned, would allow the British to protect their commercial interests, counter the growing influence of other powers, and maintain their dominance on the high seas. The Galapagos, with its natural harbors and strategic location, seemed the perfect fit. However, despite these aspirations, no concrete plans for a British base in the Galapagos ever materialized. The logistical challenges of establishing a permanent presence on these remote islands, coupled with shifting geopolitical priorities, led the British to focus their efforts elsewhere. Although the British never officially occupied the Galapagos, their repeated interest in the islands highlighted their growing importance in a rapidly changing world. The Galapagos, once a haven for unique wildlife, were becoming increasingly entangled in the web of global politics. This growing awareness of the Galapagos' strategic value set the stage for future attempts by other world powers to secure a foothold in this remote archipelago. The island's fate, it seemed, remained uncertain, their future hanging in the balance of international relations. The Galapagos, though geographically isolated, could not escape the reach of global power dynamics. The island's unique ecosystem and strategic location ensured that they would remain a point of interest for those seeking to project their influence across the globe. Chapter 4. The Stars and Stripes over the Pacific. The close of the 19th century witnessed the rise of the United States as a global power. With a growing navy and ambitions for a trans-isthmus canal, the US began to assert its presence in the Pacific. The Galapagos Islands, situated at a strategic juncture in this increasingly important region, once again caught the eye of a world power. In 1887, US Senator Thomas Bayard proposed a bold move, the purchase of the Galapagos Islands from Ecuador. Bayard argued that the islands, with their strategic location and potential as a coaling station for the US Navy, were essential for securing American interests in the Pacific. This, he believed, would solidify US dominance in the region and safeguard the vital trade routes that were emerging in the wake of the anticipated Panama Canal. Despite Bayard's impassioned pleas, his proposal faced stiff opposition in Congress. Many saw the purchase of the Galapagos as an unnecessary expense, a costly venture with little strategic benefit. Ultimately, the proposal failed to gain traction and the Galapagos remained under Ecuadorian control. This episode, however, marked the beginning of a long and complex relationship between the United States and the Galapagos, a relationship driven by strategic considerations and a desire to project American power in the Pacific. The Galapagos, once a haven for unique and wondrous creatures, were becoming increasingly entangled in the web of global power politics. The island's fate, it seemed, was inextricably linked to the ambitions of nations far beyond their shores. Chapter 5. A condor's shadow over the islands. As the 19th century drew to a close, another nation set its sights on the Galapagos Islands, Chile. Having established itself as a significant power on the Pacific coast of South America, Chile began to look northward, seeking to expand its influence and secure its maritime interests. The Galapagos, with their strategic location and proximity to vital shipping lanes, presented an enticing opportunity for the Chilean government. Some within Chile advocated for a bold move, the annexation of the Galapagos Islands. They argued that incorporating the archipelago into Chilean territory would bolster their naval power, provide a strategic advantage over their rivals, and grant them control over a valuable, resource-rich region. The Galapagos, they believed, would be a jewel in the Chilean crown. Ecuador, however, caught wind of these ambitions and responded with a swift and resolute diplomatic offensive. They engaged in negotiations with Chile, asserting their sovereignty over the Galapagos and emphasizing the island's historical and cultural ties to Ecuador. Faced with Ecuador's unwavering stance and the potential repercussions of a diplomatic crisis, Chile ultimately backed down from its annexationist ambitions. The Galapagos, for the time being, remained firmly under Ecuador's control. This episode served as a stark reminder of the delicate balance of power in the region and the lengths to which nations would go to secure their interests. The Galapagos, though geographically isolated, were becoming increasingly entangled in the complex web of South American geopolitics. Though Chile's ambitions ultimately faltered, their interest in the Galapagos underscored the island's enduring strategic significance. The archipelago, it seemed, was destined to remain a focal point of geopolitical intrigue, its fate intertwined with the ambitions of nations near and far. Chapter 6. A Presidential Pursuit of Paradise. The dawn of the 20th century saw the United States, under the presidency of Theodore Roosevelt, solidify its position as a dominant force in global affairs. Roosevelt's big stick diplomacy, characterized by a willingness to project American power abroad, extended to the Pacific and the strategically important Galapagos Islands. In 1911, with the Panama Canal nearing completion, President William Howard Taft, Roosevelt's successor, recognized the need to secure the canal's approaches and maintain American naval supremacy in the Pacific. His gaze fell once again on the Galapagos. Taft envisioned leasing the Galapagos Islands from Ecuador, establishing a naval base that would serve as a linchpin in the defense of the Panama Canal and bolster the US presence in the region. The islands, he believed, would be an invaluable asset in safeguarding American interests in the Pacific. Negotiations between the United States and Ecuador commenced, with American diplomats offering substantial financial incentives in exchange for a lease on the islands. However, the proposed deal faced significant opposition within Ecuador. Many Ecuadorian citizens and politicians viewed the leasing of their sovereign territory, particularly such a unique and ecologically significant archipelago as the Galapagos, as a violation of their national pride and a threat to their long-term autonomy. Despite American overtures and the potential economic benefits, Ecuador ultimately refused to compromise its sovereignty. The negotiations faltered, and Taft's vision of an American naval base in the Galapagos faded into the annals of history. This episode underscored the challenges the United States faced in its quest to exert its influence in the region. The Galapagos, despite their isolation, proved to be a point of contention, a reminder that even the most powerful nations could not always impose their will on a determined and sovereign nation. Chapter 7, A World at War Reaches Paradise's Shores. The outbreak of World War II in 1939 sent shockwaves across the globe, drawing nations into a conflict of unprecedented scale and ferocity. The Pacific theater, vast and strategically vital, became a cauldron of naval battles and island-hopping campaigns. The Galapagos Islands, once a remote sanctuary untouched by global conflict, found themselves thrust onto the front lines of a world at war. The United States, fearing for the security of the Panama Canal after the devastating attack on Pearl Harbor, sought to strengthen its defenses in the region. Their gaze, once again, fell upon the Galapagos. In 1942, with Ecuador's consent, the United States established a military base on Baltra Island, strategically located in the heart of the archipelago. The base on Baltra served as a critical outpost for the US military, providing a base for patrolling aircraft to monitor shipping lanes for enemy submarines, protect the Panama Canal from potential attacks, and support Allied operations in the Pacific. The presence of American forces on the Galapagos, though temporary, had a significant impact on the islands. Construction of the base and the influx of personnel brought about rapid modernization, transforming the landscape and introducing new technologies to the archipelago. Despite the disruptions caused by the war, the Galapagos played a vital role in safeguarding the Panama Canal and contributed to the Allied war effort in the Pacific. The islands, once a symbol of nature's isolation, had become a strategic asset in the fight against global tyranny. Chapter 8. The Long Shadow of the Cold War. The aftermath of World War II brought about a new global order, one defined by the ideological struggle between the United States and the Soviet Union, the Cold War. As tensions escalated, both superpowers sought to expand their spheres of influence. And the strategically located Galapagos Islands once again became a point of interest. The United States, having witnessed the strategic value of the Galapagos during World War II, maintained its interest in the islands. While the base on Baltra was dismantled, the US continued to view the archipelago as a potential asset in the ongoing geopolitical chess match. Throughout the 1950s, American military planners considered various options for utilizing the Galapagos, including the establishment of listening posts to monitor Soviet naval activity in the Pacific and the potential for airfields to extend the reach of American air power. The Ecuadorian government, however, remained wary of becoming too closely aligned with either superpower. They sought to maintain their neutrality, balancing their relationships with the United States and the Soviet Union, while safeguarding their sovereignty over the Galapagos. Although no permanent American military presence was established in the Galapagos during this period, the islands remained on the radar of US strategists. The Cold War had cast a long shadow over the archipelago, a reminder that even in a time of peace, the Galapagos could not escape the reach of global power dynamics. Chapter 9. A Paradise Imperiled. Nuclear clouds on the horizon. The 1960s marked a period of heightened tension during the Cold War, as the United States and the Soviet Union engaged in a perilous arms race, amassing vast nuclear arsenals capable of unimaginable destruction. The search for testing grounds for these fearsome weapons extended to even the most remote corners of the globe. The Galapagos Islands, geographically isolated and sparsely populated, attracted the attention of some within the US government as a potential location for nuclear testing. Proponents of this idea argued that the island's remoteness would minimize the risk of fallout and limit international scrutiny. However, the proposal to use the Galapagos for nuclear testing faced immense opposition from within the United States and internationally. Scientists, conservationists, and diplomats raised alarm bells, highlighting the devastating and irreversible ecological damage that nuclear detonations would inflict on the Galapagos' unique and fragile ecosystem. The Galapagos, they argued, were a global treasure, a living laboratory of evolution that must be protected at all costs. The international outcry, coupled with growing awareness of the environmental consequences of nuclear testing, ultimately led the US government to abandon its plans for nuclear testing in the Galapagos. The islands once again had narrowly escaped becoming a casualty of the Cold War. This episode served as a stark reminder of the global impact of the nuclear arms race and the importance of protecting the planet's most precious and irreplaceable ecosystems. The Galapagos, though geographically distant from the centers of power, had not escaped the reach of the Cold War. Their fate, it seemed, was inextricably linked to the decisions made by world leaders, decisions that could have devastating consequences for the planet and its inhabitants. Chapter 10. Echoes of Empire. A New Millennium, a Familiar Tune. The end of the Cold War brought about a new era of global politics, but the strategic importance of the Galapagos Islands did not diminish. As the 20th century gave way to the 21st, the archipelago once again found itself at the center of geopolitical maneuvering, this time driven by the fight against drug trafficking and the evolving security concerns of a post-Cold War world. The United States, with its focus shifting towards combating the flow of narcotics from South America, recognized the strategic value of the Galapagos as a potential base for surveillance and interdiction operations. The island's location astride major drug trafficking routes made them an ideal vantage point for monitoring suspicious activity. In the 1990s, representatives from the US Southern Command engaged in discussions with Ecuadorian officials, exploring the possibility of utilizing the Galapagos for counter-narcotics efforts. The US proposed establishing listening posts, radar facilities, and potentially even a small base to support aircraft involved in drug interdiction patrols. Ecuador, however, remained cautious, acutely aware of the potential environmental impact of an increased military presence on the islands and the risk of becoming entangled in the United States war on drugs. While no formal agreement for a US military presence in the Galapagos materialized, the discussions highlighted the enduring strategic significance of the archipelago in a changing world. The Galapagos, it seemed, were destined to remain a focal point of geopolitical interest, their fate intertwined with the evolving security concerns of the 21st century. The echoes of empire, though fainter, still resonated in the Galapagos, a reminder that these islands, despite their isolation, could not escape the reach of global power dynamics. The challenge for Ecuador, as it navigated the complexities of the 21st century, was to safeguard its sovereignty, protect its precious natural heritage, and ensure that the Galapagos remained a sanctuary for generations to come. And so we conclude our journey through time, reflecting upon the enduring allure of these remarkable islands. The Galapagos, a testament to the power of nature and a crucible of evolution, have long captivated the human imagination. Yet, as we have seen, their story is not solely one of scientific discovery and natural wonder. For centuries, the Galapagos have been coveted by nations great and small, their strategic location a siren song to those seeking to expand their influence and project their power. From the early days of exploration to the global conflicts of the 20th century, the Galapagos have found themselves at the crossroads of history, their fate intertwined with the ambitions of empires. The Galapagos stand as a symbol of the delicate balance between humanity's desire for conquest and our responsibility to protect the natural world. Their future, like that of our planet, hangs in the balance. It is our collective duty to ensure that these islands, with their unique and irreplaceable biodiversity, remain a sanctuary, a living testament to the wonders of evolution for generations to come.